What an impressive gallery of people we have here. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for being here with us. I have three things in my mind that I would like to discuss. I don't know if we have time to get through all of them, but now that we're going to the next phase of European Union looking at the innovations and research, there's a lot to talk about missions. You know, putting the man on the moon, plastic-free oceans, killing cancer for good, and these types of things. What, in your opinion, could be a mission that would be like something that would both ignite the industry, but also be something really kind of inspirational for people and understandable as kind of plastic-free oceans and man on the moon and so forth? Do you want to?
For me, it's twofolded. It is firstly, of course, replacing oil-based products, period. And in combination with creating good living conditions. Because it takes a lot of time and feelings to keep a forest good and vital, and knowledge and cooperation, and then all the way through. And when I look at those who works in our teams in SIRA, and the same all over Europe, all these people they love forests. They know their own trees. They daily almost go there and put a hand on them. And they want it to look beautiful, the calm, but they also want to use the forest for a good purpose, and it's their livelihood. Yep. So it's twofolded: good living conditions and replace oil-based products.
Yes, a couple of hands eager to say there.
Yeah, so I touched in my presentation on this concept of missions. Indeed, this is a new idea that came when the Horizon Europe program was being developed to make a reduced number of these kind of inspiring, future-looking activities with high involvement of citizens and the whole society visible. As you said, putting men on the moon, maybe women on the moon would be also good. But there are 5 of these, and I would say that 4 are very much related to bioeconomy. So there is one: cancer is maybe not so much, but then we have adaptation to climate change. We have plastics indeed in the oceans. Then sustainable cities and adaptation and soils indeed, soils and so all of these elements have some connection to bioeconomy. And now that we have mission boards in place, there are also mission assemblies. So then there is a process that is now established to develop content of these missions, and then different tools that will be used to fill them with both research and also policy directions. So Horizon Europe will be one of these tools, but there could be also synergies with other instruments. So that's a very interesting process indeed.
Yes, indeed. So it links to a number of the existing missions already.
Yes, I'm also a strong believer of material development, and my vision is very concrete to the 2040, I would say. So I would love to have portable phones or PCs made out from biomass, from wooden material. I believe that's doable. And think about also like how many problems that would solve, that would enable recycling. That's also, that type of equipment would be biodegradable. There will not be that type of massive problem like what we face with plastics, for instance. And that's also a great opportunity to upgrade the value of our biomass.
Absolutely.
I don't think if I'm that visionary as you others are, but I'm quite pragmatic, and really I would like to see that we find the common view of how we can use our forests and really find the balance: production, climate, and biodiversity, and really how we can use it in the best way so that we don't have this conflict, so that we can leave that and really use all our energy and time in order to reach these higher visions and higher values.
Excellent. Passing the mic.
Well, I don't know what making Europe climate neutral and circular by 2050 is if it's not a mission. That's an overarching driver of everything that we'll need to do.
Which links me to something that has been of heated debate, at least here in Finland, which is carbon sinks. I haven't noticed many people, it is a heated debate already, you can see that. but if you imagine that we're going to go carbon zero, 2040, 2050, that means every time you put out something, a trainer or a cup of coffee, you plant a tree. I'm exaggerating now, but this is essentially what carbon zero means. So in my view, that's a whole new game for the whole forest industry. What's your take on the hot potato? How transformative is it for your industries? You want to go first, I can see that.
Yeah, I would like to go first. First of all, the most efficient way of creating a carbon sink is to build a solid tree house. Put the carbon in for 300 years. That is, and it's fast and quick, and every country can do this, also the developing countries. What's the danger here with this debate is that people think that if you just leave the forest alone, standing forest, it will be a carbon sink forever, which is totally, totally not true. Because degrading biomass, that creates emissions of methane, which is 20 times worse than CO2. So you should, of course, you need some areas set aside for biodiversity. And the global target is 17%. And that varies in the European countries, which levels we are on. In Sweden, we are on 30% already. But in order to work with the climate issues, we need to cut the trees before they are old enough to start degrading. And it's tragic that so many people that really have environment at the heart has misunderstood this thing. Of course, if you plant a massive lot of trees, like we need to do in developing countries, and in Brazil and Argentina and Indonesia and China, for a couple of years, when these forests are growing, you have a carbon sink. But to make it last till 2050, I mean, eucalyptus is ready grown in 8 years. After 8 years, the degrading start and the methane emissions start. So we have to keep in mind that we should use this. And Europe should build a lot more wooden houses. I mean, Sweden, we think ourselves as a nation with small red houses everywhere in the landscape. It's not true. It's 9% of the buildings.
So maybe you would like to not only replace fossil fuel-based materials, but also steel and concrete.
Yes, and these researchers here in the hall, among the audience, have the solutions for that. So we're very close, and of course that is why we face lobbyism, not only from a very tough lobbyism, not only from oil and coal, but also from concrete and steel. But we should cooperate to find the new materials and the new solutions. But it's perfectly possible. I mean, you could have the batteries from forest fibers are under development. The first steps are taken, and that will solve an enormous problem that we have with electric cars and batteries. Right now, we ask poor children in Congo to work the mines to get the minerals for the batteries. For me, it's not sustainable. We have to have an overview and holistic view on this. And now I will let go of the microphone.
So There's plenty of hands up, yes.
Maybe if I could add that that the issue of forest sustainability and monitoring is one of actions of bioeconomy strategy, and the Joint Research Center of European Commission is having some actions on this. So both in terms of monitoring the state of forests in Europe, of which there are many challenges, also with forest fires, for instance, and pests and so on. So, and also it has to do also with management of forests, for instance, whether eucalyptus is the best option for planting or plantation. So I have my doubts, but this is really it has to be seen in a holistic way, both by diversity and carbon sinks and all of this.
I would like you to also speak about the good examples.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I fully agree. Yes. Good examples are important because, yes. But what happens is that these bad examples are very easily communicated. I mean, just to say, just yesterday there was an article in the Guardian, for instance, that was looking on these kind of conflicts between plantation forests and climate goals. So I think this discussion is it's really ongoing in the society now. So.
Yes, I'm puzzled related to the carbon sink and sustainability calculations, and I'm wondering the accuracy of these calculations. It's very worrying because they are very complicated issues also, and the results are used by our politicians to make the political decisions. Therefore, the data needs to be correct. And my understanding is that we need much more research in order to develop these models in the better level to make more concrete data-based decisions. So that's my worry.
Yeah, I think that's what we need, evidence-based approach, so that we know what we are talking about, so that we can leave the feelings. Because a lot of the discussions we have today, they are really based on emotions.
Just one quick reflection here.
Climate neutrality means getting rid of greenhouse gas emissions as far as possible, and sometimes for chemical reasons you cannot completely eliminate those emissions. So yes, land management, whether it be in the soil or in the forest, has a role to play, but it's not enough. So there will be carbon coming out of industrial activities. The question is, what are you going to do with that? If it's irreducible, you need to store it, we need to capture it, store it, and use it. And in some areas, there can be a lot of innovation, replacing fossil fuels with using carbon as a feedstock for other industrial processes.
Thank you. I noticed that I didn't perhaps address my question in a clear way, because none of you answered my question. I asked that how transformative do you see for your industry the question of carbon sinks being? Can we have a small round around that? Yeah, I mean, because it's
extremely transformative. I take again my own company as an example. Our industrial production is climate neutral today. We have a target of, because we're the biggest buyer of transport in Sweden, we will have carbon neutral or emission neutral transports 2030. And to get to that target, we are building our own process industry and producing our own fuel from the side streams of the pulp production. And of course, this was dreams 20 years ago. Some people were dreaming, but today it's a reality. And the same goes for many of us in the sector. So we will be, as a huge base industry, process industry, we will beat the Commission to the targets.
I don't really know what I should reply to this, but congratulations, and we look forward to this. This will be indeed important too. Thank you.
Yes, how transformative. I think we can see the transformation ongoing. So in that sense, it is transformable. Whether that's fast enough, I don't know.
I can just agree with what Lena is saying. I mean, it's very transformative and important. We don't have our own industry in Sveaskog, so we are climate neutral already, climate positive. But what we are doing is that we are then working with our customers through the total value chain in order to make it happen. That's the target.
Excellent. Then, sorry.
Is it transformative? Yes, in Europe, but Europe is 10% of the emissions problem. So unless you tackle the global issue, it's not sufficient.
Excellent, excellent. So let's move on to the idea of moving. I know we're running out of time in a bit. I'll let you go to lunch, but let's touch upon the kind of change in focus from going to bioeconomy to circular economy. In my understanding, that means that instead of looking at just your own industrial process, you become part of these all kinds of industrial and even consumption processes. So now, in your mind, what's the kind of number one partner in a sector that you haven't worked with before that comes with circular economy and the transformative times? Because if I may explain the context a bit more, in my understanding, bioeconomy was a good idea, but it was very insular. It only looked at what's going on in your particular industry. Then why European Union, correct me if I'm wrong, is very interested in circular economy, because it seems to be a holistic picture that takes on all kinds of industries, even the end user and their capability to participate in the circular mode of production and consumption. So with this context, who do you see as the kind of, whose doors should you be knocking next? Who should be knocking on your doors? What are the kind of new key alliances of the forestry industry?
European big tech. I think with this, every sector needs to identify where it can fit in, not in the linear value chains, but in value networks, which are going to become increasingly complex. And it's information which stitches all this stuff together. That's what allows new products, business models, and services to develop. So I think you really need to look at how you can get data to be the driver for joining all these different sectors.
What I can say is that the concept of bioeconomy was probably important historically, because it allowed to already merge across different sectors, for instance, industry that were not talking really to each other, taking, for instance, forestry and fisheries, and across, for instance, feed that is coming from the forest now going to feed the aquaculture, for instance, that are these kind of connections, or car industry that is looking for new materials and so on. So this concept was important, but indeed I would agree that it is not enough now, because the whole idea of sustainability becomes so important that now circular economy is also, well, it's a newer policy, but it is also a part of a picture. So all of these kind of sectorial policies or approaches in the end are expected to lead into something more, let's say, green or ecologically friendly, and then they are just steps in this process. So this is my personal opinion.
And so whose door are you knocking on? You got away with it.
So I'm not representing the industry, but I'm very much like the idea also that the the development is not linear anymore, so it's more circular. What I also find very interesting is that if you look some years back, 5-10 years back, we used to separate like non-food purposes and food purposes, and we considered wood as not conflicting the food chain. But today, I think it's the border is not so clear anymore. So these different sectors are becoming closer to each other, and I think food industry could be a partner.
Yeah, I was thinking about 3 sectors. It's food, definitely, and then textiles and transports. I mean, those are the ones.
Excellent. Can you explain why transport? I understand sort of the two.
Because it has a great impact on the climate. So really find the solutions for the fossil-based.
Quite right. So in terms of fuel. Yep.
When we make our green forestry plans, we work together with those who knows computing and digitalization by heart. And in Växjö, where we have our headquarters, is the gaming society. A cutting is planned every 12th meter. And we use AI and data mining to find the horrible bugs that destroy our trees. So it's very computerized to manage a forest when you have double certification schemes where you have to adhere to the 270 criteria that are in certification. And then, of course, a lot of digital equipment to plan the transportation, chemists to provide the right kind of, when we take out the side streams, where we provide, and biologists. I think we will need to go further into nanotechnology. That would be the door that we not open that much. Otherwise, modern industry like Stora Enso or UPM or Metsä in Finland or SIRA or SCA and so on is something totally different from 20 years ago. There's been a revolution in the forest with the help of technology, and there's a revolution also in the industry, also in the sawmills and in the process industry. So pretty much, I think, most areas are covered one way or another to find these products that can replace oil-based products. And that is why it's such an exciting and innovative sector.
Thank you so much. Without further ado, I would like to thank our panel, hand over the ceremonies to the master of ceremony. I was thrilled, entertained, and learned new stuff from you, so thank you so much.
Excellent.